This section of the review, we're going to look at problems 4 through 9, which is just dealing with operations of functions. So starting out with number 4 here, we have f of negative 1. So we have to look up here, we have our f of x equals x squared minus 8x. So our input should be negative 1. So we're looking at, something squared minus 8 times something. In this case, now we're going to use negative 1 instead of x. So we're plugging in negative 1 into each of those. And we'll simplify it. So we have 1, then negative 8 negative 8 times negative 1 there would be like plus 8. And we should end up with, this should equal 9. Number 5, I'll do that one in blue so make sure we can tell them apart. This one we have a composition of functions. We've got f of g of 3. So remember, the first thing we have to look at is our g of 3. So our function g of x is equal to 3x minus 1, which just means we're going to be doing 3 times whatever we have in the parentheses minus 1. So in this case, we're going to put that 3 in here. So we're going to have 3 times 3 is 9, minus 1 should give us 8. So g of 3 should equal 8. And now we're going to take this 8 and we're going to plug it into our function f. So we have f of 8 should equal, and again we're back to our function f that's over here. So we're going to say 8 squared minus 8 times 8. And that should be a 64 minus 64, which should give us 0. So the answer to number 5 should be 0. Number 6, we're just going to do some operations here. We're going to do, it says g minus f of x. So remember, that's the same thing as saying g of x minus f of x. So rather than just using their names, we're going to substitute in the expressions that go with them. So g of x is equal to 3x minus 1. So we're going to plug in here 3x minus 1 in place of g of x, minus, then our f of x is equal to x squared minus 8x. So we're putting in x squared minus 8x. Now remember, we're subtracting all of that, so you need to put parentheses around it. We're going to distribute that negative through because we're going to take away an x squared and take away a negative 8x. So what we should have right now is 3x minus 1 minus an x squared, and then minus the negative 8x is like saying plus 8x. And now we're going to take this and just reorder it and combine the like terms. So putting in standard form, so I'm going to have a negative 8x. I'm sorry, negative x squared. Sorry, I'm writing one thing and saying another. And then you've got a positive 3x and a positive 8x, so we're going to say plus 11x. And then all that's left is the minus 1. So we should get negative x squared plus 11x minus 1. On to number 7. So number 7, we have f of x times g of x. So we're going to take our expression for f of x, which is x squared minus 8x, and we're going to multiply it times our g of x, which was 3x minus 1. Now you may set up and do a generic rectangle, or you could do the FOIL method, whichever you're most comfortable with. I'm going to go ahead and just FOIL it out there. So I've got an x squared times a 3x, which should give me 3x to the third. And then I'm going to do my x squared times negative 1. So I'm going to say minus x squared. Then I'm going to do my negative 8x times my 3x. That should be a negative 24x squared. And then I'm going to do that negative 8x times my negative 1, which would be a positive 8x. Let's just combine our like terms here. So we've got 3x to the third minus 25x squared plus 8x. Number 8. Now we've got f of g of x here, right? So it's composition of functions, and since our input in our function g is just that x, we're going to replace that expression with the expression above here, the 3x minus 1. So this is going to turn into f of, instead of g of x, we're going to put 3x minus 1. So we're going to end up putting in that 3x minus 1 into that expression for our f of x, which was x squared minus 8 times, whatever our x was there, or whatever our input was. So now we're going to put in 3x minus 1 and the 3x minus 1. Our job now, just to simplify. So 3x minus 1 squared, when you FOIL it out or use a generic rectangle, you should end up with 9x squared minus 6x plus 1. And then make sure you distribute that negative 8 through this quantity. So you should have a minus 24x plus 8. And lastly, we just need to combine the like terms. 9x squared minus 30x plus 9. That should be the answer to number 8. And then number 9, it's just asking us for the inverse of g of x. So g of x is equal to 3x minus 1. I'm going to do this one in blue so it stands out a little bit better on the paper. So remember, g of x is equal to 3x minus 1. Now some of you like to take it and list out the operations and then rewrite their undo operations. You can do that, or you can take it and put in like the y is equal to 3x minus 1. Remember, flip-flop the x and the y. And then solve it for y again. So I'd add 1 to each side. I have x plus 1 is equal to 3y. And then we're going to divide each side by 3. And that should give us y is equal to the quantity of x plus 1 divided by 3. And then we need to put it back into our function notation there. So we're going to say that g, or the inverse of function g, should equal the quantity of x plus 1 over 3, or divided by 3. So here are our answers one more time. For number 4, you should get 9. For 5, you should get 0. For number 6, you should get negative x squared plus 11x minus 1. For 7, you should get 3x to the third minus 25x squared plus 8x. For number 8, you should get 9x squared minus 30x plus 9. And then for number 9, you should get the inverse of function g should be x plus 1 all divided by 3 there. If you have questions, please make sure you reach out to me here. Thanks for watching.